So when we left off the last video, we had just finished inserting the powder print bed chambers into the cabinet, and so now it's time to continue where we left off. So we'll go ahead and go through and back into the main section here, back into bottom frame assembly 2, and then it gets us to their main screen, and then we click on these 9 little blocks over here. This gets us to the individual instructions or individual steps. So we left off at step 56 in the first part 2A, and so now we're gonna then click here on step 58, and it'll take us directly then to continue where we left off. Okay, so this next step is said you take these, this is the MGN12 rail and trolley, rail and the trolley, and then and these are the spring nuts here. And so I already did this first one, and basically all I did was take these spring nuts, need 8 of them, and I just line them up like this. Just push in there. It's pretty simple. And then what I did was I just used the slide it down to where get them spaced out initially. And then what I did was, it says this is basically I'm gonna just use it in US. This is 24 inches wide, and this is almost 20, a little less than 22. So it ends up being, it says it needs to be centered to the profile. So that puts it about 1.25 inches from both sides. So what I did was I aligned the end ones, and I just put this here next to it and lined up the other nuts to go there. And then basically what it says is then you use these M38. It says don't tighten the screws, so you want to allow the rail to move slightly on the profile. So I'm sure there'll be some adjustments. There you go. There's one. So I'll go ahead and do the other one. All right, so we got both of these assembled, and then basically these then, and you see I'm facing the front of this cabinet. The print chamber's on my right, and so these can basically fit in those guides. Okay, and just push them down in there. So that's what it says, and then the next step then, it's having me attach then these final screws. That's what holds those pieces in place there on the other side. So that's what they will attach next. That's a pretty simple step, and we'll get that put in. So the instructions tell us we're 50% done after we got those screws put in down here to attach those Recoater trolleys. Then it says to go ahead and tighten all these up. Now I somewhat did that previously to help get that one nut in the square nut, but then I went through and used a little socket wrench then and just firmed up all the joints that it tells us. So, all right, it's starting to look pretty good. We've got a couple hours into this part, so let's start on the next part here. Okay, so the next step actually involved this pulley. I'm going to go ahead and take this apart. I had actually put most of this together. So it takes this is the 3D printed part here, and just takes a small M3. Now it called for a M3 16 socket cap screw. I had none in my kit. I looked everywhere for an M3 18 socket cap, and when I did initially put in an M3 16 button screw just to kind of see how that worked, it pinched this too much, it tightened up too much. So you want this pulley to spin in there freely. So I think an M318 socket cap is the correct choice for this to get the best movement. And it has this little pulley in here. I had a heck of a time finding this pulley and realized it was in the box labeled small mechanical parts, and that's actually where I found the springs that are used in the next step. So there's also a set of itty bitty washers that go in between here, and I will tell you that was not fun. It takes a little work. You got to get a thin little blade, kind of help get that in there. So that there, and then this is what they call a fixed reaction. I have no idea why it's called fixed reaction, but this fits in here, and then these springs will get down in there, and then you can just, I did one like this, and I just pushed it in there until it actually sets in there, in the groove, and you can use just a little screwdriver or something to make sure it fits in there right. And there you can hear it snap in place. And then the next one, you should be able to compress and slide it in there like I just did there. And you can, like I said, you can hear it snap into place. So that completes those 2 steps. All right, so the next step actually calls it M510 flathead screws for this next step. Well, these are small little screws, and in the picture, they look like socket cap, and they go all the way through. And so obviously that is what they should be. And I found out, I had a previous problem with the hardware that I mentioned, a step. And when I messaged Thomas, he sent me a note back, and he said, yeah, I was correct in the change I had to make. And if I have any doubts, in the back of the instruction booklet is a list of all the hardware used for each section. And he says if that should be correct. So when I found this belt tensioner set here, it does confirm that it uses actually an M530 that goes through these, which totally makes sense. So I'll keep this around always to kind of verify, but I'll be sending my changes to Thomas. He's been updating the instructions as I find issues. So that's what I'll do then. These, all it basically says is to put this all the way through here like this, and then it says to tighten it down just enough to where this is. It says so that their heads are in line, which he means in terminology, it should be flush with the components. He says in line with the component, so it just needs to be flush. And so that's what I did. I just put that in there, make sure it goes through the spring here. You can see how it goes through the spring, and then just screw it down until it's flush with the component. It says don't tighten any further, and when compressing and extending the springs, it says the pulley holder must move smoothly. So it's actually got a lot of pressure in there, so not sure if it moves as smoothly as I want it to. So but I'll mess around with it just to make sure it's working right. But as of now, that step looks complete. And then what it's going to do, it looks like it's going to now mount back into the main assembly on that side with the window there. So I'm going to go ahead and get that set up, and we'll come back to that and show you.
So the next step calls for this pulley mechanism to be dropped in the cabinet. We're not going to do that because if you put it in here and it attaches with these back screws, you're going to find difficulty when you get to step 101, which is assembly of the belt. So we're going to do that later. I do want to note, I had Thomas add this note on here. There's 2 holes on the side of this fixed reaction pulley assembly piece, and those holes need to face that port to the outside so you can attach the back plate later, and that wasn't there, and I'm glad, because by the time you get to that step and you don't have them the right direction, it was better to get it back. So we'll do the pulley assembly with the belt in a later step. It'll be much easier.
Okay, so the next step it says use that heat resistant silicone that we used prior. It says to glue the 5mm thick ceramic paper insulation. So this one's 465 by 95mm on the back cover shown. So it shows you there where approximately should go. It says it should be 105mm from the top edge. So what I did was I made marks here at 105 millimeters. So then, and that piece of paper fits right in between these two squares. So I'm going to go ahead and put some of the caulking here on the back, silicone on the back of the paper here, and then I'm going to go ahead and just glue it in those marks and in between those two windows, as you saw. Okay, so I attached the small one. This other long one, it goes on the opposite side, and basically all I did was, for the other one, was the same thing. I just ran a bead about 1/4 inch from the top. So I'll go ahead and mount this, and then I'll show you the final of the two pieces. So now here's both pieces attached. So that one fits in between the windows there. And then on the other side here, we have the full length one. That's in place. So like I said, it's 105 inches, 105 millimeters from the top edge of the cabinet to hit the edge. And that's for both pieces. So anyway, so this is that cold ceramic paper insulation. It says it's 5 millimeters thick.
Okay, the next step was to mount these Recoater blade mounts. They're 3D printed parts, and I didn't show the initial because I apparently corrupted my video, so I had to re-record it. And so this is the first step. So locate those parts, and then I'll show you the actual parts when they're inserted. I've already attached the one, but you have these blade holders.
So this is the front. This is what the back looks like. Of course, it'll mount over here on this side. They mount on the little trolleys here. So they use the little M3 screws that I've already mounted that one. Now that's called the front, and this is the front of the unit. And so then we'll go ahead and get this one mounted. It'll sit right here, and it runs alongside there, and we'll mount like that. And obviously then the blade will sit in there. So we'll go ahead and get that one tightened down, that one, and screwed up, and we'll move back for the next step. Okay, so these are both now locked in on the trolley, and now the next step is we're going to take the blade and set it down in there. It uses the 4x25 socket head, and it looks like the way the blade is oriented, you can see there's a chamfered edge here, chamfered edge, and that then sits down in there faced away like that from this direction. So we'll get that fit down in there. It looks like these 3D printed parts, tolerances is pretty tight, so we'll have to maybe tap those down in there to get that to fit. So we'll come back and see how that fits once we come back. And then the next step, it just says to slide this from left to right, tighten these screws as you go along the rail, and then tighten them. It moves nice and smooth. So it appears to move nice and slow, and that's obviously important. So I think we're good to go to the next step. Okay, so the next step here is it calls for the, there's this little pulley. So this is called the G2T pulley. So you can see it's unique. It's got little ridges there. And then it needs a stepper motor, and then this is the HPL part, and you can see what that looks like. And that's, and then we got to mount this, obviously on here. It looks like this pushes on here, the ridges to the outside. So it's, there we go. And there's probably a set screw that we need to put in there as well. We just need to add these two other screws. Okay, so I left off yesterday. I was missing the set screws. I think you can see, but so I had that on there. Well, I got to thinking as I was reading through the instructions, this piece was very difficult to move. The springs on just did not move. And I thought it was awful tight. So I took it off, and what I ended up doing is If you recall, I made these flush last time. That's what it said in the instructions. But when they go in there flush, it made this so tight, I couldn't move it by hand. And so when I backed them out just a little bit, this then was able to move freely. It was still kind of felt a little, it caught on the screws here. And so what I did was I went back and I found that the holes in this piece here, in the pulley holder, the holes that screw goes through, I actually took a little drill a little bit bigger than the holes and made it slightly bigger because I felt it catching on the bolt. And then when I assembled it, now this thing moves really freely, much better. It still has tension, of course, but now I backed these off and made that hole a little bit smoother, so it's a nice smoother operation. So now I'll install this back in, and then this install, and that's when we'll pretty much put the belt between these two is the following step. So let me get these mounted up on the unit, and then we'll get to the belt phase. Okay, so I've attached the stepper motor here to the back. It says to line these that as far, so this is as far forward for adjustments, belt tightening. So you can see, and come over here to the other side, there's the little pulley, and we can see then on the opposite end is the pulley holder. So if you recall from the previous steps, it showed mounting this pulley holder before you attach the belt and everything, and I decided that's not the best way to do this. So the following then is what I ended up doing. So this is, I think, would work best for most people. I don't know how Thomas did it per his instructions. It's pretty much impossible. Once this is mounted and you've got this on the unit and everything, trying to thread this up and through that pulley is impossible. So what I did was I took everything apart, was easily able to get it on that, and then I'll go ahead and put these back in, mount this to the unit, and then this will already now be threaded on. So I think his order of operations, I mean, he may have well been able to do it on his, but frankly, so much easier. I spent literally 10 minutes trying to thread this through what was on the unit, and just it won't come up and around. So by taking this out, get it halfway on, and then you can thread it back where you need it, and then that should do the trick. So we'll go ahead now and get this all mounted back up on the unit and get ready to go. Okay, all right. This has got to be probably one of the hardest assemblies. So the first thing you do is now that we got that belt looped, then you add that piece there, this piece right here, I'm pointing to, and we'll just, right here, this piece, that belt lock. You get that screwed up just enough to get, then that belt on this side comes right there. And then you'll bring it around and come here and you get it and you measure till it says, till that end is just almost touching that bolt. So I did that and I cut it. Now you can see there's no easy way to tighten up that screw right there. What I ended up doing is you're just gonna need to get a little Allen wrench and just slowly tighten that up, and you can see the belt's in the way here as well. So you gotta make sure you don't bother that as you tighten this sucker up. So we'll just take time. I just don't want it to slip. So hopefully I can get it tightened up enough and don't bump it, that we can get it done right. All right, it took a little bit of effort because you know, once you get that installed here on the left side and you bring it around, then when you bring around the belt and then you get it over here cut, as you're tightening this, you can see this belt draws up and it gets in the way of the Allen wrench. And the first time I did it, I actually bumped this and it pulled a little bit more out of here than I wanted. So I had to reset. I feel pretty good about it now. It's all tightened up. And it obviously looks like it's holding. And that's what we want. So it looks like there's plenty of belt tension on it. And it looks like if we ever need a little bit more We can move the stepper motor. Looks like you can tighten up, but tightening is not my issue. I think I did a pretty good job. So this one's complete, and now it looks like the next step we're adding some the rock wool holder on the sides of the cabinet here. So I'll get those parts together and we'll see what they look like. All right, so this next step, you've got calls for the inside back cover. It's got countersinks on the front here. It calls for the rock wool holder. And then it says important, insert silicone dust protection between the inside back cover and the rock wool holder. So this is the silicone dust protection. And it says, it's not shown in the video. And it says that, not shown. But it says align the top edge of the silicone dust protector with the top edge of the rock wool holder. Now, one thing I will tell you is you've actually got one on both ends, these holders. And these holes here are different. And so the distance, and so are these. And so only one of these rock wool holders fits. The holes align here. And this here only aligns the one side. So in fact, this became the back one because I went over there and I fitted it up and made sure it lined up with the holes here because they are different. So just make sure that you fit everything up on the unit cabinet before you do it. So it looks like this says it aligns with the top edge. And it looks like, if you see this clear piece here, obviously it's silicone, so it's going to be a little testy. But it looks like it fits right there in between. And then it's a dust protector, obviously, because it hangs down and will protect. Now, I had to clean these off. I took a wet and cleaned them. They were gritty from the package they were in. So just keep that in mind. If you like a clean surface like I do, then that probably would benefit you as well. So we'll just get that set on there, and then I'll get the right screws and get that put in. Okay, and as you can see now, I mounted this. This is wedged in between here and there, as you saw. So that flaps down as your dust protector. So the next step, and it shows in taking this over and mounting to the sides of the cabinet. So let me, it takes the M48 socket cap, takes looks like 4 of them, and then we'll get this mounted up. Okay, so we're gonna mount this here, and there's washers, Teflon washers. And the first time I did it, trying to get that washer fitted in behind it and screw it in without everything falling out. So what I ended up doing, I just used a little of the red silicone and tacked those darn washers onto the back. And that way I got the screws ready to go, and they should hold in place now. So let's see how well this works. Okay, so this actually, using that tacking on the back of the washers worked perfect. I was able to get that up in there without anything moving around. Now, when I put it in, after I put it in, it said if that silicone doesn't cover, you know, the full length, and I did. I had a little gap here. I had about, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch gap at this end. It says to loosen these and to pull it. I would recommend not doing that. As soon as I loosened those and I tried to pull it a little bit further, it fell out of the channel and I had to take the whole thing off. So what I recommend is getting it tacked on there between the plate here. Go ahead and get that put on, and then move it over here to where you're going to insert, you know, where you're going to put it, and see if the window aligns, and then go back and on your bench and move it over in the groove till it fits. And then you can see now as the recoater goes by, it moves under that like that. So I'm going to go ahead and prep the other side. Pretty much follows the same thing. We're going to put a little silicone on there, washers to hold them in there, and then install it and make sure the window, that silicone window aligns as well. Yeah, so this was a much better way to do it is, like I said, go ahead and attach the silicone there like I did, and then come over here and just do a test fit. And once again, I had to pull this side over a little bit more, because you can see now it's got a nice all the way from here to here. Okay, so we've got these side panels on, and then what the next thing is it says to install these side connectors. So these are going to brace these, it looks like. So it calls for these two first, and then it says to drop in. Then these are the side plates. They call it the inside cover, right and left. So this is the right. So this one drops down into the groove. You can see that. Remember, if you remember that groove was on top of it drops down in there as well, and then the other side goes in here. Once again, we'll fit in the grooves there this one. And then what ends up happening after both those covers go in, then you start adding these side connectors as well, all around them, it looks like. So those side connectors will go in here on each side, and eventually they'll go over here. So I'll go ahead and complete that. And these are the side connector pieces here that I was referring to. I got 2 installed already, and they'll install here on the other side. So we'll just get these in there, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so we finished putting in all these side connectors here. So there's 2 in each corner that braces this piece here, and then there's 2 here, 1 on each side. Okay, the next step here is it says this is a Recoater service window cover, and this is called the fixed reaction brace. It uses this M4A screw. That's a socket cap. And now it's going to go and mount to the side of the
Cabinet.
All right, so the last step was then to take that Recoater service window and mount it here, in that little black piece that was mounted with that matched up inside with the fixed reaction piece that holds the pulley holder. And it calls for M4 here, 16s, and when I put those in, they would not go into the holes. And when I took it out, I realized that the holes that were tapped were M3. So I went ahead and used the M3, and they pulled in fine. The biggest problem with this whole thing was none of these holes aligned. And so they're off just by a little bit. And so I decided this is held on anyway. It's not it's just a service window. So I don't need to mount those. So I'm just gonna leave them out. Maybe you have better luck aligning yours. But this is where I'm at this point, and it says that I am complete with this section of the build, and probably we'll now get into mounting some more of the electronics and other parts.